This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Jennifer Faust, our honored patron and Switch Cat. Hey everyone, I'm Keith S.
And I'm Justin V.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch Virtuoso. And we're using our real names this week and for a few weeks going forward as we're preparing for our PAX adventures. And apparently they want to hear our real names in the opening to the podcast just to make sure we're the people we claim to be when we're applying for press badges. So
to be fair, KC, people call you KC and people call me JV, but
yes, that's
we're
true.
going
That's
legit.
It's just I think they just want to match up the voices to the IDs that we send them as we apply. So it makes sense, but I think it's going to throw people off a little bit. Then again, if you're new listening, then you don't care what we called ourselves in the past, but we'll still be KC and JV during the show.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to PAX East. We're trying to get our stuff together for that, and hopefully we'll have lots of shirts and stuff to give out. We're going to meet a lot of more developers. We're still talking to all the developers that you met at PAX South, and we're trying to make some arrangements to see who will show up on the show in the near future.
That's right. I'm very excited to see who we might have on the show within the development scene. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, a lot of great games. Always a lot of great games, especially the indies. Just some cool stuff to look forward to there. We've been putting up a few extra things on the website just to bring everyone up to date on a little bit of housekeeping here. I wanted to give a big shout out to Daryl Wright. He is one of our listeners and community members. I've been quietly scouting out some writing talent to help us out on the website, and Decoy DW, as he's known on the Discord, he came to me with just a proposal for writing a review, and I wanted to see what he had, and he wrote up a Escapist 2 review, and it was phenomenal. It was great. I barely had to do any editing work to it, which was one of my key requisites to anyone who wanted to write with us. And it's up on the website right now. So if anyone wants to check out his beautiful review of The Escapist 2 for Switch, you can go over to the SwitchCast.com right now, and you'll find that there in the article section. And hopefully we'll have a few more reviews coming down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually really impressed that he had the initiative to write this review for our website, and it is actually quite well written and fun to hear, or fun to read. So, good job, Daryl, and I look forward to other reviews from you listeners in the future.
Yeah. I didn't want to make a mass shout-out like I did last time, because I got some great reviews, and I got some that I would really have to workshop with people to get up to something that I could post on the site. And I am a editor by profession, and therefore it's really hard to meet my standards of what I will put on the site. It's not to say anyone who submitted stuff before is just a bad writer. It's just that some things take a lot more revision and work to get up to par. And so that's just something I just didn't have the time to do. So I needed to find people who already are kind of up on that. And that's where we are right now. So
yes.
We also have a contest going on right now. This is not an official one from us, but it is a community sprang forth contest. If anyone's interested, you can go over to our Discord chat. Link to that is in the show notes. One of our members there, Sun Worshipper, a Switch Kaiser.
All hail the Switch Kaiser.
And hail the sun, and or was it praise the sun?
Praise the sun. Praise the sun.
Praise the sun. He's put a call out asking for people to post their favorite SwitchCast moments, either something from the show, something you or I did on a show, or just something that they liked in the community. And if you tag his username in that, the whole rules are posted, and the prize that he's giving out are posted, or they're pinned in the general chat room if you're interested in it. But that's the general gist of it. He's going to basically pick pick randomly one winner from everyone who pitches in a favorite moment. And I actually asked him to collect all these and save them because I might want to read some of these favorite moments on a future episode of the podcast.
And I am so overjoyed that people within the community are stepping up with these contests and taking the initiative. It's just incredibly inspiring to see you guys wanting to contribute to the community and just give away your own generosity to your fellow Switch friends.
Yeah, I think the prize he was offering was something, I mean, like a Joy-Con customization
Yeah,
kit.
custom Joy-Con, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. So definitely check that out. Also, I've been posting up, if you haven't noticed before, on the Patreon site, patreon.com/theswitchcast. Every week I post the previous week's podcast with my own notes about some of the behind the scenes workings, right? So just like what happened, what crazy thing you and I had to go through to get this show together, or maybe some challenges we had, just a little background info or my opinions on the podcast, a little commentary. I am thinking now I am probably going to start turning those into patron only viewable. Not that you have to be a big backer. Like I'm still going to leave it that if you're a $1 backer, you could see it. But if anyone's interested in these, I'm going to make these just a special thing that only the patrons can view in the future. And obviously, only patrons are probably visiting our Patreon page anyway, so it's not really closing anybody out. But
yeah, I do think that you have some really interesting insight over what goes on behind the scenes for each episode.
Yeah.
And there's some hijinks that happen pretty often in the background.
Yeah, especially that last episode where I had to go and run in and find a soundproof booth. Soundproof booth somewhere hidden in my office building.
Oh, that was quite a doozy. And honestly, ultimately, I think patrons are really the ones that are interested in this type of content anyway.
Yeah, so I figure if I just make it something that only the patrons can see anyway, it just makes it feel a little more special and just one more way of showing a special thanks for what they do to help us make the show.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Enough of the housekeeping here. We have a really good show for you guys lined up today. We have 2 games to review. JV and I have both been playing some fun stuff. We got lots of news, and we're going to be hitting up a community pulse. We haven't actually done that in a while, so we have a bunch of questions lined up by you listeners for us to answer and opinions to address. So
for sure.
Let's roll on into all that now. All right, game time. JV, we know that you have been getting colorful with ChromaGun since last week's episode, but now we're here to actually hear your unabridged, your fully candid opinions on the game while the developer is actually not here breathing over your shoulder while you talk about it. So let's hear how ChromaGun was for you as you played that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been playing ChromaGun. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, I'll run down what the basics are and how everything works, just so that you can get a good idea of what it is without necessarily needing to listen back. So, to start off, ChromaGun is a first-person puzzle game where you kind of utilize a special color-shooting gun to solve a puzzle in a test chamber to proceed to the next room. The whole game is set in an abstract science corporation while a faceless narrator snarkily goads you forward. Mm-hmm. So if you can't tell already, this game has a lot of similarities to Portal. Based on all the trailers, and especially the interview from last episode, Casey.
Yeah, we spent about, I'd say, a quarter of the time making references, and the developer himself, he referenced Portal a lot and said that was a very intentional direction they went in at some point.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that the developers are absolutely unabashed about their inspiration. So, there's that. I wouldn't go so far as to say that this is a flat-out Portal ripoff, but I would definitely call this as more than just an homage.
Well, I guess it was fair to say that the theming and the flavor of the game is very Portal-ish, though the gameplay itself is its own thing. You're not really putting portals and doing those kind of puzzles. This color-based puzzling is fairly different.
Yes, that the fundamental puzzle mechanics are different from Portal, and they're actually quite simple. They're centered on the ChromaGun's capabilities, which, obviously, based on the name, are color-based. So the ChromaGun's function is essentially to shoot a paint shot from one of three colors. I believe it's red, yellow, and blue. You hit the wall with one of these three shots, which will cover them a specific panel with one of the colors you indicate. And from there, you can even mix and match the red, blue, and yellows to form the next level of colors, like green, orange, or purple.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the tools that you have when you're in a test chamber to solve the puzzle. Now, there are floating spheres in each test puzzle, most of which react to your ChromaGun's shots and become magnetically attracted to the wall panel of that matching color. So, let's say you shoot a wall panel with the red shots. It turns that wall panel red, and the red spheres around you immediately gravitate towards that wall panel. So utilizing that functionality, you're essentially using the ChromaGun to move around those spheres, triggering switches, which open doors, and ultimately gets you to the next level. That's pretty much the fundamental element of this game. And it can be pretty fun, Casey.
Okay. Now, are they particularly tricky to solve, or did you pretty much breeze through the game?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. The puzzles start off really simple, like really simple. You're just, triggering switches by moving the spheres to the right spot based on the matching color and, that type of stuff. At the beginning, you're running through the motions to figure out the basic elements that you're going to be using later on. The game does increase in complexity, and you have to be more mindful of the aspects of the color and positioning. Like, if, for example, sometimes you have to be more mindful of what colors to mix and which colors transition into other colors. So you might need a sphere to transition from a blue to a green, and you have to be mindful that you shoot a blue first, then if you need it to transition to green, you shoot a yellow next, so on and so forth. And sometimes you have to switch the color of a wall panel mid-flight to repel a sphere. Sometimes you have to completely nullify a wall in order to get the physics going correctly. So the puzzles themselves can get pretty interesting, and I like how creative the team was able to get with how simple the ChromaGun's functionality is. Okay.
Yeah, how's the controls work? Like, how do you swap between the colors and stuff?
It's just a simple button. One button refers to each color. Mm-hmm. So you just press a button and then you shoot, and it's that color. You press a different button, it switches to the next color, and you shoot with the trigger, and then boom. Though ultimately the game isn't even really that twitchy or hectic. It's not nearly as hectic as something like Portal. The game is definitely more on the puzzle side, and you don't really do that much platforming at all.
Is there even a jump? I don't think I even noticed a jump.
No, there isn't any jumps. It's all essentially you moving around in a single plane. So you're just moving around and controlling the colors and the panels that way. There aren't any time limits, nor are there any jumping physics puzzles like in Portal. You might have figured out how to solve a room, and once you've actually solved that puzzle, you don't have any dynamic elements that would force you to utilize reflexes to execute the solution.
Okay.
Like in Portal, you may have figured out how to solve the room, but you really need enhanced reflexes to execute the solution. Jump through the portals. Like in Portal,
you'd have to jump through a hole and then get the right shot off while you're falling, out of the hole on the other side.
Right, exactly. And sometimes you go through a portal and you have a small split second to shoot another portal to redirect where you're going to fall through, etc., etc. That is definitely not the case in ChromaGun.
Yeah, and then that was always the thing about portals. Though, was just that getting your head around that interdimensionality of it, like shifting your brain from, all right, I went through this wall, but now the wall is my floor, and now the world's flipped, and keeping your orientation was just like the biggest problem with that game, just grasping it.
Well, I wouldn't even really call it a problem.
Well, it wasn't the problem, but it was the hurdle to grasp.
That's a good way to put it. It is a hurdle in Portal. And it's an intentional part of the difficulty of it. And that is not the case in ChromaGun whatsoever. The spheres themselves move really slowly. So you have ample time to react to what's needed, and there really isn't much worry about executing the solution once you've actually figured out the puzzle itself.
Okay. Are there like death traps in this game? Like, can you like get hurt if you do make a bad move?
You can. There are some panels later on that electrify you and et cetera, but it's not really anything that would kill you per se. It's not like, there are also certain spheres that if you hit them, they kill you, but they're not like shooting towards you and you have to repel and dodge them really quickly. It's just I guess a location hazard that's something to consider, but not an obstacle that you need to continuously worry about, really.
Did you find any of the storyline, or was there a story that compelled you at all in this?
Yeah, honestly, the game doesn't have a story whatsoever. The game essentially lays out a bunch of puzzles for you. You go from start to finish. Start with a puzzle, you complete the puzzle, you could move on to the next puzzle, etc., etc., etc. It's kind of very structured ultimately, and I would even like to note that when you're going about trying to shoot and execute a solution, you might accidentally get yourself into a point where you can't solve the puzzle and you have to restart a level.
Okay.
And everything feels that segmented, and it can be a little bit frustrating. The game itself is pretty monotonous since the ultimate puzzle structure doesn't change from room to room. The types of puzzles you're solving are color puzzles with just increasing bits of complexity. So the experience feels samey, and since as I mentioned, there isn't really a narrative that compels you to move forward, the only motivation you have is to just get to the end, beat the puzzles for the sake of beating them.
So the puzzles don't like eventually add like, oh, I never thought of using my, color gun that way. That's like, there's no real like mind-opening new tricks as you go through the puzzles.
I wouldn't really say that that's a thing ever in this game. They definitely have a learning curve, so it does. The puzzles get more complex the later you go, but none of the new mechanics really shift the way you're thinking to the point where it's changing the experience overall.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so, that's something to consider with this game. They did kind of try to add some sort of aspect to break up the game with the narrator. They do have that GLaDOS-esque narrator, man, that does chime in every once in a while.
Is he funny?
He hops in and gives you a snarky quip, and, it can be kind of amusing, though there definitely isn't the personality and charm that comes with the Portal games.
Okay.
Those games are just so well written, Casey.
Right. Well, yeah. We're comparing to one of the best games of all time. So we are setting a high bar. But I mean, was it enjoyable in its own right, though? Comparably.
It was nice to have something that wasn't a repeating musical loop, and you can definitely tell that the narrator is trying to be funny, and some of it does land, some of it doesn't. But it's it's what it is, and it's nice that there's something there as opposed to it being dead air the whole time.
So overall, how did you feel about the game, and was it worth the price? I guess is always our bottom line here. Yeah,
I would recommend this game to anyone who loves the first-person perspective and who enjoys color-based puzzles. The game, thinking about it, the game is pretty much a slow burn, which you can kind of beat. I believe I beat it in about 5 to 7 hours. Sometimes you might catch yourself in a corner and you have to restart a level, and that adds time to it. But the puzzles don't get so difficult that it's impossible to solve, and I don't even expect people to sit through a whole 6 hours in one session. This is something that you solve a couple puzzles, stop, solve a couple more puzzles, stop, etc.
Okay, so it is a kind of game that it fits the portable format in that way, that you can sit down, you can play a puzzle or two, get off the train, go to, like that kind of thing. It's very segmented play.
Right. If you like color-based first-person puzzle shooters, and you want something that doesn't necessarily have a narrative, but has a continuous stream of puzzles that you can solve, yeah, this game could work. It's a gallery of puzzles, and if you set your expectation that this isn't as groundbreaking, polished, or overall enjoyable as Portal, it's still first-person puzzle game worth checking out.
Actually, it's interesting you say that, because I'm trying to think of, color-based puzzle games, is that really a big market? I'm just thinking, you know what? If we reviewed that right back to back with my Pick-a-Pix Deluxe review from last week, that could have been a nice little color-based pairing there. But
honestly, I do want to see more indie studios, or even studios in general, explore the first-person puzzle genre more. I can only think of
one other game. What was that one that with the dimensions?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name itself. But
yeah, there was the one where you had the thing that changes the dimensions of where you are to soft world or stuff like that.
Yes, right.
Quantum Conundrum. That's the one we're thinking of.
Oh, hey, that sounds cool. Also, quick note: this question did pop up a lot. If you're colorblind, they did include a colorblind mode for accessibility, which I thought was an awesome touch. I did notice in some of the videos
where there's little symbols where the colors land.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool touch, because as soon as you see something that's so dependent on color mechanics like this, you know that it can be a concern to the colorblind folks. And
yeah, not even you don't have to be totally colorblind. You could be someone who has a hard time seeing green and blue. You would need something like that to help with this game.
Right, but luckily they included symbology so that you can tell the different panels and colors apart.
Cool.
It's a pretty good solution to the situation, and I think I'm super glad that indie developers are taking that into consideration.
You mentioned it was a slow burn game. I've been playing something I feel is also a slow burn game this week. But I dig it, but I will say it's the kind of game that I feel like I definitely can say not everyone's going to be, it's not a game for everyone, but I really dug this, and I hinted at it last week, of Mice and Sand, a.k.a. the Jawa Simulator.
Nice.
I call this game a Jawa Simulator because you are essentially Jawas. You are these little mice people, and you are on this desert planet, and you are roaming about it in basically a sand crawler, a big machine that just crawls through the sand, picking up scrap metal, and your general duties in the game are to lead the mice by deciding what structures to build within your roving machine, decide where to station different mice, where to spend your resources, and general locations. The main plot of the game is that your previous leader, their sand crawler got trashed, and now you're just kind of the last vestiges of these mice people trying to make their way in the world, but you're looking for the lost city of El Dorado. It's supposed to be this place of plenty amidst this
barren wasteland.
Yeah. There are lots of places to visit on the way. At the beginning of the game, you have maybe 4 or 5 places to travel between, and you have to keep in mind stuff as you're traveling between the locations. You'll pick up quests like this guy, I need some springs, or I want just this kind of scrap, and you'll collect, and you'll have workshops that can build different stuff out of that scrap. So it's essential that you keep moving, because that's where you pick up these resources. But as you're moving, you're also burning fuel. So, and fuel costs different amounts at different cities, so you kind of have to figure out, all right, I'm going to try to end up back at this city after I do a loop and maybe buy it while it's cheap here, or just do a mission to get some fuel. But along the way, you're also paying people for rumors. And rumors are how you unlock more of the map, or unlock secrets about, here's how to build this room, or, here's how to do this little trick on your ship, or, improve productivity. But the main thing is unlocking new locations. And as you unlock new locations, you'll start picking up better scrap, but you'll also start encountering more danger, of course. Eventually, there'll be monsters that you'll encounter along the way, and if you don't have guns mounted on your ship, you're going to be in trouble. And as I realized in my most recent playing of the game, you have to remember that you need to make ammo for your guns. Otherwise, you will be just trudging through as this thing is ripping your ship apart. And you're just like, well, I better get to the city before I die. And,
oh, wow.
It's tricky. It's tricky like that.
Now, I'm looking at screenshots, and it does remind me of games like Sim Tower and Fallout Shelter. Have you seen those games?
Yeah, so I have definitely, I could compare it to something like Fallout Shelter in that, yeah, you're going to have people or your mice, and they will have certain skills. Deciding where they sleep promotes them to visiting certain rooms, to doing tasks. The way the rooms work, too, is you will assign tasks that you want them to do. Like, let's say you have a kitchen, because it's important to have high-quality food to keep them energetic. And you'll say, I want you to make some wine. I want you to, ferment some cheese, because you're mice and they love cheese. And I want you to cook these meals. And you could set certain things to loop. You could say, after you do these two things, I want you just to keep cooking this meal over and over again. Or maybe you have a furnace in your ship, and you could tell, I want you to flip-flop. I just want you to make glass and make bricks. Just go back and forth between those things. But then you have to also remember, but to make bricks, I need this material. So I need this room to keep constantly making that material that goes to the furnace. And it's all interconnected like that. And so you have to kind of keep an eye on what kind of materials are coming in. You might notice, the furnace is shut down. I must be missing materials somewhere along the chain. And then you have to figure it out. So it can be a little tricky keeping tabs on all the rooms, especially as your ship gets bigger, because you start off with just basically a van, and then or like a school bus sized thing, but you upgrade to bigger and bigger ships, and you start juggling more and more things. You'll start getting more and more mice on your ship, and it has a good sense. I never feel comfortable, I never feel totally safe. I always feel like if I'm not constantly moving, if I'm not constantly building up money, I know that I'm going to run out of food or water or fuel if I'm not always doing so, which is kind of good. It kind of adds the feeling that you are one of these mice in this desperate situation. And if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
Right. I feel like that's definitely something that they have to nail in this type of game, especially since it's single player and the setting feeds into that.
Yeah. You're going to get some Oregon Trail style random events as you travel too.
Okay.
And some of these events can be very varying degrees of greatness and horrible things to happen to you as you're playing. Just to give you one example, there is I ran across a monolith, like that 2001 Space Odyssey thing.
Okay.
And it had like a emblem of like a genie lamp, and they said, hey, why don't you try making a wish? And I was like, okay. And I made a wish to find El Dorado. And it gave me a bunch of fuel. I was like, oh, okay, it gave me fuel. And then it sucked all the water out of one of my mice and killed him.
Oh, wow. So it was a monkey's paw.
Yeah, it was a monkey, exactly. And it was really sad because these cute little pixel mice, and then it tells me in somewhat graphic detail of how he just withers up and dies as if all the fluid was drained from his body. I'm like, that's horrible.
So essentially that thing converted all of his fluids into fuel for you.
Yeah, that basically.
Way to go,
and I'm pretty sure all of the wishes have some sort of monkey paw, like, sad counterattack. And so I started staying away from those. But there were other things too. Like, there are times where you might be in a situation where you literally just cannot feed all the mice on your ship, and you might have to banish one of them from your ship to almost certain death in the desert because you just, your situation could not support them. So yeah, you do make some pretty tough decisions along the way in here. And it is fun for that, and it's not easy. It is a slow burn, though. You cannot sit down and play this game. Like, you have to be willing to be like, I've made some decisions, and I'm going to set the game, because you could speed up time in the game. I'm just going to, wait till I get to this next town, or I'm doing very menial stuff for most of the game, and then it just all builds up to, all right, now do I want to plop down all the money I've been earning on this new upgrade for the ship, or do I want to save it to buy some rumors or whatever, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So most of it is just resource management, and that's its own genre, right?
A big part of it's the resource management and planning your route and how you're going to accomplish those missions in order to maximize, like how much you get out of every trip you make.
Now, is this a continuously running game, or is there actually an endpoint that you can reach?
There is a story, and I believe there is an endpoint, because I keep expanding the places I can go, and there's definitely a rising challenge of bigger monsters. There's actually a decent little backstory in this game, too. I found a spaceship. Early on in the game, you find the spaceship that crashed on the planet, and they tell you how this is actually the spaceship our ancestors came to this planet on.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it crashed, and that's we're generations down the line, and we've been doing this just because this is how we survive on this planet now, and all the things that you drive are converted, crashed spaceships.
Okay, okay, cool.
So you're these little descendants of space mice that are now trapped on this land, but you're looking for your way to get off the planet somehow, hopefully.
All right, okay, so there's definitely an underlying mystery.
Yes, there is. And if you pay for more and more rumors, you'll start putting together more and more story, and there's a few characters you meet here and there, and I like the exploration of not just the world, but the rooms you can develop. Like I said, you can pay people to tell you how to build rooms, but you can also just discover them on your own if you ever just happen to get the parts. Like if you're like, I don't know what a motor does, but I'm going to build a motor. And if you happen to have a motor and this kind of ore and 10 bricks, there'll be the option, if you look in the build menu, there'll be the option to build a sewing room or something like that. And you're like, oh, I didn't even know that existed in the game. But just because I built up the stuff, it'll unlock for me, which is kind of cool. The biggest problem I have with the game, though, is the controls, navigating the menus. I don't feel they nailed it. I'm always jumbling through the buttons of oh, wait, how do I pick to select my destination? Oh, wait, I have to hit Y first to select the ship as opposed to the menu, pick this room. When I'm in the room, I have to hit L to go to the map select. If I hit R, it's a little convoluted. They need more shortcuts for important stuff.
I was looking at this, and I was wondering if there was any touch controls in handheld mode for this.
Okay, I will confirm that there are touch controls. That might make it easier. I have not played with them before too much. I'd still say the menus are a little cluttered, but it probably is a little bit better with touch controls, though it's a little awkward to do that when I'm standing, or you can't really use them when you're playing it on the TV, obviously. I guess that's one option to make it a little easier.
Right, okay. I can definitely see that a lot of the buttons on the interface seem like they're built to be touched. So if this is something that you're going to be playing on a dock at home, that might be a bit of a problem.
Yeah. But overall, I think the main thing is, whether you're going to like this or not, is whether you're willing to play the game at its pace. Even if you speed up time all the time, the game never progresses really quickly. You have to be willing to get through all the parts of I'm just doing quests, I'm just building up resources, I'm going to have to get some setbacks because you might spend a bunch of resources on something stupid by accident, or you might get attacked by a monster that you weren't prepared for, and you might have to just sit in a city for 10 minutes repairing and building up your food so that your mice aren't starving to death.
Okay, yeah. But that's all part of it, really.
Yeah, but that is part of it, and I enjoy this. I really did like this game, and I'm still going to be playing it, and I'm going to see how far I can get in it. But I can say, if you are not someone who has that level of patience, don't even try it.
I can definitely concur. This is the style of game that you need to really invest a lot of time with, it seems.
Yeah. But for $10, I mean, I'm really happy with what I got here. So, all right, news rundown. Let's talk about all the cool stuff that happened this week.
Let's do it.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines.
So, it looks like Rocket League is receiving cross-platform multiplayer later this year.
Yeah, this cross-platform party system. Are you familiar with like how their party system works right now or in general?
I mean, it's all integrated into the Switch, so I wouldn't really be able to say how they're going to integrate party system cross-platform. Seems like it's going to be an interesting solution that they're going to have to come up with.
Okay, yeah, they just said they're working on it, but it is something they're going to try to engage. I just, how you're going to basically arrange things with people on other systems, like the communication, that's really the trick, is knowing who's online and if you have friends that are playing on the other things, or if you're just going to be looking for, like, I guess, random allies and opponents.
I feel like the communication issue isn't going to be that big of a deal, since a lot of the communication can be done through outside means like Discord, or through, in-button quick presses that send alerts to your team. That can be relatively consistent. The primary concern that I have, and I'm sure a lot of Rocket League players have, is that if you're playing on the Switch, there is a bit of a performance hit compared to other platforms. So
yeah, right.
You might be at a bit of a disadvantage playing this on the Switch.
I could see that. I mean, I'm sure they can possibly try to work on something that either times down the other guys to be at your speed possibly, or just somehow to even it all out. The main thing I was actually thinking about is how to, let's say, add a friend, because you're going to probably have to add your friend. Like right now, you can just add your friends from your friend codes on the Switch, and they could be your buddies in the game. But if there's someone on another system, there's going to be some other code or something that you're going to have to add them as.
I'm guessing that the Rocket League team is going to have their own separate friend list system that you have to log into, and then from there you can set up parties cross-platform.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how they do this. I mean, especially considering it's across other consoles and PC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, those who have been waiting for and have been anxiously anticipating the next Animal Crossing title that we hope will come to Switch, got a good sign this week, as Nintendo did apply for a new Animal Crossing trademark in Japan. It specifies that this would be, amongst other things, used in a home video game machine, a portable electronic game machine, as well as for plushies,
merchandise.
There's all sorts of things like that. But it is just one of those things that would happen as a sign of them making the game.
All right, let's get the hype train rolling for Animal Crossing Switch.
Honestly, this is something they would probably do anyway, just to protect the trademark over time. But you know what? We're just looking for any sign in the stars of it coming over.
I think this is one of them. This is one sign. Yes. Keep the hope alive.
What size memory card do you currently have in your Switch?
So I currently have a 128 gigabyte micro SD card. It's been holding up pretty well, but I don't put that many heavy stuff on it. But apparently there is a new micro SD card out in the market that is 512 gigabytes. Jeez.
That is a lot of downloads.
Yeah, this is the biggest micro SD card available, and previously it looks like the record was 400 gigabytes before.
Yeah,
so 512.
So for everyone who likes to cram as much as they can onto just one convenient SD card, you have a new bar to reach if you just want the most.
It seems like it'll be readily available in the market around February 2018. So look forward to that if you have the wallet for it. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah. I did say that I already got ripped off for my memory card, but that was mostly because, like I said, that's just what GameStop does. And I had a GameStop gift card. I was going to get ripped off on whatever I bought from them, so...
Oh, GameStop.
Yeah.
Someday you'll learn.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, here's a big step. I'm very excited. This weekend marks the kickoff of the closed beta in the EU for Arena of Valor. On January 27th, this will be going on. And I'm really anxious to see what this is going to look like on the Switch, how it's going to play, and kind of kick off. This is the kind of competitive game. This is the most esport kind of game that I have a chance of really getting into, honestly.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited because initially I was looking at it and it looks flat out like a League of Legends clone.
Yeah,
there's a lot of interface choices in this game that looks straight up from League of Legends. And you know, there are a lot of design choices for League that I am not a big fan of. But Arena of Valor seems to be tailored for mobile devices, and it comes with a bunch of fundamental gameplay changes that support that.
Yeah.
So like the game length is about 12 minutes, which is cool.
That's good. That is a problem with a lot of the MOBAs, especially the ones that have the 5v5 competition, is they can go very long. Like, you can just stalemate with somebody, or both are playing a very long-term strategy, and then nothing happens until the 30-minute mark, where it just all, like, you know, who rushes down the enemy first at that point. 12 minutes is actually a fairly healthy length, I think, especially for one that can be played portably like this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprisingly excited.
I'm going into this with an open mind. I've said before, I don't feel that this game has caught me with anything original. Like you said, it looks like a League of Legends clone, which is fine. It's fine to be a clone of one of the most popular games in the world. I just feel like I would like to see something that really, I don't know, just
hooks.
An aesthetic choice even, or something like that would make me feel like this is something unique.
Yeah, I feel like both of us are going to at least try this game out.
Right. I mean, it is unique in that it is a MOBA on Switch, which is probably a really big deal all in its own. So that could be enough.
Absolutely.
And also, this is interesting. I didn't realize, or they just announced it this week. That's why. So BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, they announced the character lineup and how they're going to be integrating DLC into the game, and they're bringing up one of those issues that we always talk about as such a very touchy topic. The day one DLC for this is going to be, well, you're going to have 20 characters in the base game, and then another 20 characters sold as downloadable content.
Yeah, so that's definitely an interesting choice. Because when it comes to fighting games, yes, it's good to have DLC characters to freshen up the meta every once in a while. But, you know, the fact that it's so spread out like this seems a little bit questionable.
Yeah, I mean, it's all... And some of the most attractive characters for the game, the ones that set it apart, are going to be a part of this DLC. Like we talked about a while back, the Ruby character that's coming to the game, she's going to be DLC. And in fact, I believe all the 20 characters that you get with the game are characters you've seen in previous iterations of the BlazBlue series. So if you're going to want any of the fresh, new mechanics that you might not have seen before, you're going to have to cash in a little bit. Now, their defense is that they're trying to make the game, and I don't know how much I'm willing to buy this or not, they're trying to make the game cheaper to get into, so supposedly it should cost less at retail when you buy the base game, and then, you know, you have to pay for the characters. Right now, all the numbers are in yen, so it's hard for me to figure out what that's going to translate to.
I don't buy that argument whatsoever. They know that even if they sell the base game with a cheaper price point, the people who are going to get into this game hardcore will buy all of those DLC characters just to remain competitively relevant. And it's going to be a higher price tag for them in the long run. It's inevitable.
You know, if you just wait long enough, there's going to be BlazBlue Cross Tag Extra Edition that just has these characters packaged in them. Like next year, like you might have to wait a year, but there's going to be a version of this game that just has all of those characters in it already, and they'll probably have like another 10 DLC characters you could pay for extra, but it'll probably be the economical choice if you are not in a rush to play this game day one.
Yeah, that's the thing. The people that this takes advantage of are the early adopters, so it's not going to be ideal. Plus, if someone really wants to get into this game on a competitive level, they really want to start from the beginning as much as possible,
right?
So that they can evolve with the meta changes and really have a leg up once that new special edition comes out in the future.
This is a very hardcore fighting game series in general, so yeah, that is going to be the situation. You do have to get it on day one, and they probably won't mind paying that DLC for whatever characters they want to play as, so it probably won't mean much for them. I'll just say, most of the listeners here, if you're not a hardcore fighting game fan, this might not be the fighting game for you anyway, so I would definitely suggest, unless you really are planning on mastering this game, you might want to wait.
It does look like the BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle will cost 5,800 yen at retail in Japan, and that does translate to about $60, which is standard price. For a game. So I'm not sure what their justification is there.
So that launches May 31st in Asia and June 5th in North America. So we'll see how that comes along.
Yeah, we will see.
Updates. We got an update for WWE 2K18. Hopefully this will bring the performance of the game up to par with the other platforms it's available on. It's always had some sort of performance issues. Despite previous updates, it's kind of been having a hard time getting up to speed for everybody. So this should be out as of today, if anyone's interested in checking that out.
Yep. So Splatoon is also getting a new gun this weekend. It's the .52 Gal Deco, which is a hilariously bedazzled gun. Its sub-weapons are the curling bombs, and the special is the Stingray.
Mm-hmm. We got a voice update. They're going up to 1.3.1, and this adds the option to play it docked for the first time with a controller as opposed to touchscreen. I don't even know how that's going to work because the game is so built around the touch controls and the very precision movement. So I'm gonna have to check this out just to see how they're going to it's hard for me to see how they're going to integrate the controller controls.
Oh, that's going to be really interesting because I can't picture in my head how they're going to do this.
Yeah.
Are they going to utilize the HD rumble and the motion controls somehow?
Mm-hmm. Sonic Forces. They've announced previously there was going to be the Supersonic DLC, and they just announced this week that said DLC will actually be free to download, and that is a forever offer, not just a limited time deal. And you haven't turned on Xenoblade Chronicles. You've beaten it, right? So you haven't turned it on in the last week or two, have you?
Yeah, I've definitely beaten it, and I do know that they are receiving a new patch with some updates, right?
It has a few fixes. They made a few little adjustments to some quests, namely ones that previously you had to be at a certain point in the game in order to complete them. But now they've adjusted them so that it doesn't really matter where you are in the game's main story. If you've gotten the quest, you can finish them. There was like 2 or 3 of them they did this to, which is good because I actually keep hitting this problem with a bunch of quests that and I'm like level 40, like 42 in the game right now.
That's
and
respectable.
I've been digging through all the side stuff I can do. But I run into a few missions where I get to this point and like I've been doing all these little side, like hunting for stuff in the world and meeting this character at this time of day. And then it would culminate with a level 80 boss monster that I just meet somewhere in the wild. And I'm like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
All right, so I basically have to beat the game or I don't know what level you are at the end of the game, but I'm assuming that sounds like it's a monster I'm not going to beat till I'm near the end game.
Right.
Other than that, they fixed a few other little bugs, and voiced segments in the menus can be skipped if you don't want to hear all those guys talking about their own leveling up. I believe they also fixed the big problem you had, or that we both had. You know the one. Just say it.
Think you can take me? Don't forget me! Think you can take me? Don't forget me!
Which is funny because I mean, I'm relieved that they've taken that out. But the internet, of course, being the internet, is clutching to this as its like meme that they don't want to let go of. And
I kind of find it hilarious, to be honest.
People have been posting ways to like, here's what you do now. Uninstall the game, disconnect from the internet, reinstall the game in the original version, and play it without that update. So that you can get the voices always.
I will never forget the original voice. Now, the changes have been documented, so instead of, think you could take me? It's replaced with take this. And with the don't forget me line, it's now just, don't forget! You're done!
Anyway, but yeah,
Take
so
this!
I mean, look, I'm relieved. I've been avoiding that ship that they do that on. I wanted to go back and do some side stuff in there, but I've been avoiding it like a plague. I think I'll finally go back now and check that out. But I just think it's hilarious that there's so many people who are like mourning the loss of this very meme-ish aspect of the game.
I mean, he said not to forget him. I guess won't forget him.
Keep him there, yeah.
Okay, but I do want to say, it annoyed me to death before, but now that it has been memeified, I kind of cherish it. I really do cherish these quotes.
Don't you forget about me.
Don't.
New releases. As of today, we have all the releases for this week seem to be coming out today, and that includes Celeste, Dust Off Heli Rescue, Atomic Run Gun Jump Gun, and a slew of Pick-a-Pix Deluxe updates, including small, large, and mixed puzzles.
There's also Zero Gunner 2, Strikers 1945 2, Tachyon Project, which I will be probably reviewing soon, and Super One More Jump.
Down the pipe, a few games were announced or confirmed this week. February 1st, we have Shiftlings Enhanced Edition. Looks like a weird puzzle platformer with some couch co-op. One person's a big, bally alien, another's a little alien dude, and you're trying to navigate each other through some levels cooperatively.
That's pretty neat.
Bullet Hell Shooter Aperion Cyberstorm is coming February 8th. The Fall 2 Unbound. This is I think this is a sequel, actually, to something else. But this is a point-and-click adventure game where you play this weird rogue AI that's taking over the free will of other robots, and it's kind of like this weird moral conundrum of making things do things they don't want to do in order to preserve yourself. It's kind of a weird, dark adventure game.
Yeah, interesting.
Owlboy, which comes out February 13th. This is actually one of the platformers I've been very much looking forward to, just because it has this very awesome art style to it.
Yeah, and it actually has a pretty decent following on the internet. So it's something that is a fan favorite for sure. Yeah,
February 13th for that one. RBI Baseball 18 is coming out March. A physical version of Darkest Dungeon is coming out also in March, and it will include both DLCs that were released for it. Frederick 2 Evil Strikes Back is also coming out this March. Something called Neo Atlas in April. My Time in Portia, which looks like a 3D Stardew Valley, actually. This is
right.
Yeah.
I saw this.
It's a very pretty looking game, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, this looks pretty charming.
Yeah. You know, you do all the same things. You build stuff. You make friends. There's a dungeon. There's a mine. It sounds pretty much like Stardew Valley in 3D.
But maybe 3D. 3D Stardew Valley. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
I also got confirmation of games called Earth's Dawn, Danger Mouse, the Danger Games, which is a mobile port of an endless runner.
Cool.
I was actually a huge fan of Danger Mouse as a kid, though this game does not look... It just looks like an endless runner site, throwaway game. Miles and Kilo, which is a sequel to Kid Trip, in case anyone was familiar with that title. And Totes the Goat, which is an iPhone port of a game that people have called a cross between Crossy Road and Q*bert.
Yeah, it definitely has that Crossy Road art style with the Q*bert-esque gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Roller Coaster Tycoon, possibly in the works by Atari. They launched a crowdfund campaign for it to come to Switch. If anyone wants to back that, we'll have a link.
Oh, yeah.
Those Who Remain, which is a creepy survival horror-themed, kind of just like a first-person adventure game. I didn't see any action in the trailer, but it looks like a very paranormal kind of investigation, in this like abandoned post-apocalyptic world. Kind of had a Last of Us feel to it. And this game, Opus Rocket of Whispers, this is actually a sequel to the last Opus, The Day We Found Earth, which looked like this really cool, that space exploration game. And this one, it's not related, I think, directly by story, but it does take place, I'm guessing, in the same universe, but it has to do with this witch and some other guy who are also trapped in a post-apocalyptic, there's an abandoned world as they try to find a way off, and it has that kind of somber feel like the other one did.
Very somber games over here.
Yeah, this one's like a top-down adventure game, whereas the other one was that weird space sim point-and-click adventure-y type thing.
Right, exactly.
All right, Community Pulse. Shall we switch gears and talk to some of the listeners?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Community Pulse. It's been actually a little while. We've had so many extra segments on the show recently. We haven't had time for Community Pulse in a while.
Oh, absolutely. Let's finally dig into what the community feels about stuff.
All right, so what rings a bell with you? What do you want to kick us off here?
Oh, so to start us off pretty easy, from Aldrin Cornejo, what Joy-Con color combination is your Switch currently sporting? How often do you switch things up?
Personally, I mean, I haven't bought other color Joy-Con because the only other controllers I bought were like the wired controller, and I got that Pro controller, so I have not yet had a need for another Joy-Con to have color options, and I only bought the gray one to start, so that is not an option for me yet.
Yeah, so for me, I have a number of colors available to me. I have a pair of highlighter blue, I have a pair of highlighter red, I have a pair of highlighter yellow from ARMS.
You just open a closet and they're all like lined up to match your suits for the day.
Yeah, and I do have a pair of the standard grays, not highlighter gray.
That's your formal wear.
Yeah, it's my formal wear, but I did get a really awesome pair of custom painted Joy-Cons from community member Darkus. Very cool of you to do that. Thank you. He sent it to us as a Christmas gift. So awesome. Really appreciate that.
Cool. I have an opinion here who shared with us by Rock Roberge. He wrote, "Love my Switch, but wish the mobile companion app would allow me to type on my phone instead of clunky typing on the Switch. Sony allows this on the PS4 with their mobile app, and since iOS allows you to dictate, I could quickly type creative text in Rocket League." That's actually a pretty interesting point there. Granted, the touchscreen when I'm playing it in portable mode, at least, the touchscreen does let me type pretty fast. But what he said about being able to use the
dictation function
would be really nice in games like that. So you could quickly send a message out without having to take your hands even off the controls for more.
I actually think that would be incredibly cool for more systems to implement. I think text to speech is a great way to maybe circumvent any latency issues when it comes to voice communication for multiplayer.
Yeah, though granted, reading during the gameplay might be a little distracting, but I think it still is better than having to type things out on there, and especially if you're in the lobby or trying to talk with maybe send some messages with your allies before or after a match, it's easier than typing stuff.
Right. Exactly. All right, so from Daniel Malik, he says, Nintendo stated they wanted to reach a goal of 20 million Switches sold by the end of the year. Right now, estimated based on pre-Christmas stats, we're probably around 11.5 to 12 million. That was largely on the backs of Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Without any mega huge games announced for 2018 so far, how do you think Nintendo plans on getting to that 20 million?
I think the first point that I think was already made clear on the Facebook post, though, and worth clarifying here, is they're not looking to make 20 million total. They're looking to hit 20 million in this year alone, separate from the 11 to 12 million they sold last year.
Which is incredible. That is a huge goal for Nintendo and for any portable console. I honestly, I suspect that we're going to get announcements for mega huge games later this year. And those could be really what the Switch can piggyback on to reach these numbers.
It's also fair to note that it's not like those games like Zelda and Mario have stopped selling the system now. Yeah, they came out last year, but if you're selling the system, those are still reasons to buy the system if you haven't yet. And the
Exactly.
And the system is gaining momentum. It's the fact that you can aim for 20 million for this year because it sold 11 million when it went from nothing, not even a thing that existed in the minds of, players around the world, to something that we're all here listening to right now, right? It went from 0 to 11 million. Now it's picked up that speed. It's in the news.
Right.
It's in the public consciousness, and that's just becoming more and more of a viral thought in people's minds. So 20 million is quite feasible just based on its success and the media attention it's gotten from that. And now people might go back and say, wow, that Zelda game sold almost 10 million copies by itself. All right, yeah, maybe I'll get a Switch now.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're getting a Switch brand new and you haven't picked one up already, there are two major reasons for you to grab one.
I'm sure 4 million people will buy it just because of Dark Souls.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still a bunch of exciting stuff already announced on the horizon. There's Kirby, there's Yoshi, there's,
Honestly, and we're still waiting on that full direct that people speculating when it'll come out next month or March. I feel that, maybe March being the anniversary of the system itself, that would probably be a good appropriate date for them to announce its second year of titles.
Yes, I suspect it'll be coming pretty soon.
All right. Swilly wrote and asked, with the Labo announcement, do you believe that Nintendo will try to continue expanding on the new product, or will this be a one-time spin-off?
I suspect that this is probably going to be an initial one-time spin-off, and if they see that there is a high demand for it, then they'll release more products in the future.
Yeah, the success will definitely dictate whether they make more, though I'm fairly certain they have probably already blueprints for more Labo toys, like tons of blueprints of ones they didn't include, and then ideas for games that they could easily put since the games are not like super difficult to play in.
Right. I feel like it's going to roll out kind of similarly to Amiibos, where they announced a couple of Amiibos, and really, once it picked up, they were confident to release a lot more and expand the line beyond Smash. So that's just Nintendo's style, and I feel like it's gonna play out that way. And to tie that up, from Jeffrey Kappenberg, he says, everyone else is too busy making fun of the cardboard aspect, so I'll ask you, how well do you think Labo will perform in the market? I can't really predict whether people will like it or not, but I am kind of rooting for it to succeed.
If I'm always more willing to make the predictions, and I'm fine with being wrong, but I think it will do well enough. I don't think it's going to be like this smash hit, that's going to make them $1 billion. But it's
you don't think it'll be Amiibo popular?
Not yet. I think it's going to, though, be a media darling, though. It's going to be the kind of thing, it's going to do well enough. It's going to get news stories, and I think the media is going to blow it up because it's just so new and different, and it makes a really good, story,
headline.
On like Polygon and even on like Wired magazine, stuff like that. Like, the media is going to eat it up as a really cool story, and I think it'll gain momentum, but I don't think it's going to be just like a smash hit out the gate. I think it's going to take a couple of generations of Labos to come out if they get past that first launch of them. And yeah, then it possibly could become something like Amiibo for kids that we'll see in, new and different iterations. But yeah, I think it'll take a while to get there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
All right, why don't we wind things down with our usual system switch. For this week, I am going with Downwell, based on a interesting story that came out this week. The developer, the indie guy who developed Downwell, which was one of my favorite, it still is one of my favorite iPhone games, and back when I did a mobile games podcast, it was one of my games of the year, actually. He's actually signed on to work with Nintendo. He's Ojiro Fumoto. Yeah, he's part of the Nintendo team right now, and it's possible that one of the tasks they have him on would be to bring Downwell onto the Switch, which could be a very good fit. It's a simple, what was the way to explain this game? I don't want to say like it's an endless shooter or something like that. It's crazy, simple graphics, falling game. You jump down a well, you have gun boots. I guess that's the best way to explain it. It's a game where you have gun boots, and you're falling down through this labyrinth, and you float by shooting your machine gun shots out of your boots, and you're trying to go down and down into deeper levels. It's a little bit randomly generated, and there's lots of different, obstacles and shops to buy upgrades as you go. But it has a great actual ending to it and everything. And it's just a really fun and unique, exciting little action shoot-'em-up game. And I think it has a good place on the Switch. I'm used to playing this game in, what do they call that, portrait mode on the phone when you have your phone upright?
Yes. Portrait mode.
I'm used to playing that because it is important to see how far down. So this could be one of those Switch games that you actually have to turn on its side to play well. That actually we worked in the pinball, so it could work here. So anyway, yeah. I'm going to go with Downwell.
Yeah. And for me, I will be picking Gravity Rush. Now, this is definitely not likely to happen since it's specifically published by Sony themselves. But if you haven't played this game before, Gravity Rush is a open world-ish platforming game where you control a young girl named Kat who has the ability to essentially choose her gravity target. So essentially you're standing at one point, and then if you pick a wall over there, that becomes your center of gravity, and you float up and land there. And there's just a lot of really interesting puzzle elements to it with that mechanic. The whole game is beautiful and really serene feeling. I just love Gravity Rush quite a bit.
No, yeah, that was a great game. That was it was one of the few games I really appreciated the motion controls on the Vita when I played that. Yeah. And that would be a great fit on the Switch with that too.
Right, exactly. The reason why I bring it up is because this was originally a Vita game. So the Nintendo Switch should very easily be able to handle a game like this.
Yeah. It's almost a shame because it's such a good game and it's on a system that limited how many people really got their hands on it, which is one of the best things we hope for with these system switches. Luckily,
it was re-released on the PS4, but, I think the Switch would actually be the perfect console for it since, it blends portability and home console.
I just love the way, she doesn't fly. She just falls in whatever direction you want. And that's literally how she travels. It's just I'm going to fall up. And then you could change it. I want to fall sideways. And that's how she moves.
Exactly.
All right. Awesome. Very good choice. Let's just say good night to all our fine listeners and remind everybody to please check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/theswitchcast. If you'd like to help support the podcast, check out some extra inside stuff and maybe get a few other rewards just for backing us for $1, $5, $10, whatever you want. And just let us know that you want us to keep making cool, awesome stuff. And if you don't want to support us monetarily, you're perfectly well invited to give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
Absolutely. And we definitely have a bustling community, so feel free to join us on our Discord chat. Everyone is awesome, non-trolly, and friendly there. We like to have a very welcoming community. We also have a Facebook group that you can join that passes on that welcoming community vibe as well. We have a Twitter. It's twitter.com/theswitchcast. And you can email Casey and I directly with casey@theswitchcast.com or jv@theswitchcast.com.
Promotional considerations were provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And until next time,
switch it up.
Don't you
Forget about me. Don't.